Oh, they liked the bell too. All right. All right. Welcome, everybody. As you see, we don't have a flag, so sorry, but we are nicely packed high and tight. So we do have monkeys and lions. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I'm going to give everybody just a minute to find their spots. And we do have another table here if you are looking for a seat and you want to spread out. Okay. We have one guest today, so I'm going to invite Dr. Gimple up to introduce our guest.
My guest today is Gary Weekly. Gary, just wave your hand. You don't have to stand up. Gary worked for me for 18 years. He's the best cast technician in the state of Kansas. But he, like me, is now retired. So welcome.
Gary, thank you so much for joining us. I am going to have Dr. Gimple actually do the first announcement of our series of announcements. And I'm going to have you stand right here so they can see you on the screen.
Karen Hiller should probably be making this, but she isn't here. The reason she's not here is because she and Yana are over at an apartment welcoming the third Ukrainian family to Topeka. So the first two are doing quite well. And this is a lady and two sons and a daughter, I think. But they're coming from Arkansas and they're scheduled to get here at 1 o'clock. So pretty close. Yana's done a tremendous job of filling her apartment full of things you need to live on. And there are more families in the pipeline. So there will be more needs, and your help is appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's interesting because I'm friends with Yana on Facebook. So my Facebook exploded for the last week and a half of everybody offering things. And I'm talking things like bed frames and twin beds and refrigerators. I mean, big stuff, not just, and then lots of the little things. And so for me, while there can always be a question of the value of social media, this is an amazing way for a community to crowdsource and make a difference. And what a wonderful welcome to new members of our community. So I love that. It feels it so perfectly in alignment with Rotary. So our Rotary Cup money this month will go to the Kansas Book Festival. This is going to be supporting Meadows Elementary students to be able to attend. This is a way that we can get some of our students to come to this regional book festival. And they're already working on authors, but it's pretty amazing. And so please give generously. Thank you. Building also on the student side, I am just so proud of the fact that as a club, and thank you, Grace, and thank you, Karen Hiller, we have 5 students going to RILA this year. That's amazing. So we, as a club, have allocated funds for it. We have had an anonymous donor also provide some additional funds, but we are kind of like they do in a lot of fundraisers. We need to fill a little bit of the gaps. So if you are interested in helping to support to underwrite the $375 per student to go to RILA in June, please just let me know or let Steve know. We do have some other people who are offering to support as well, but if you want to chip in, that would be wonderful. As I put in my weekly email, the board did approve a slight increase in food costs. So this is going to help us meet the need of those increased costs in food that our vendors are experiencing through supply chain and inflation and all that stuff. It's finally coming to us a little bit. It's just a slight increase, and we're hoping that this is going to keep us in good stead for a while, but I wanted to let you know. You will see the increase. If you're prepay, it'll show up in your quarterly, and then if you come to the desk, it'll be $17 instead of $15 for a meal. We are exploring, trying to get back to being a little modern, we are exploring a square that we can work with Venmo or PayPal so that we can make it a little more seamless, so you don't have to wonder where all your singles are coming from, to be able to, if you're doing pay as you go. Thank you to everybody who filled out the survey. There still is time if you want to share your ideas or input. This is seriously setting the trajectory of the next 3 years. But we did get great participation, and I really appreciate it. And we will report out the overall survey results as we share with you kind of where we are with the strategic plan. We're in draft form right now. The Community Services Committee is going to meet right after our meeting to finalize the details of our second service project with our district grant dollars. So if you are part of the committee and can stay for at least 15 minutes, or if you are just interested and want to stay, I really would appreciate that, because we're really looking at what is the significant need in 501 in those teachers and students. And so I got some great feedback from Larry Robbins this morning, and I think we're going to have a really great process in place. So are there any other announcements before I introduce our speakers?
Line meeting.
Oh, that's right. Steve would like you to RSVP for his, I like the way you called it a meeting, the wine tasting meeting at Spirit Lake. And that is May 15th. May 15th. You received an email through Club Runner for an RSVP. If for some reason you didn't know that you were supposed to, so please let us know. If you're here and you didn't get that, then that means we need to work on some things on Club Runner for you, and we can get that cleaned up. But yes, it is Spanish, International Wines of Spain. So please bring a bottle, and we're going to start this up again. We had a great time the last time. I am going to introduce Brendan.
Thanks, Marie. And to everyone, welcome to Camp Cowabunga here at the Topeka Zoo. So it occurred to me, I thought to myself, everyone knows about Camp Cowabunga, right? And then I start to think, maybe not. So then when people started showing up today, there were a lot of, well, where do I go? Well, eventually we found it. And I don't know if we'll be back here, but this is the site that Rotary will use when we do have conflicts at the Japanese garden venue. So like, for example, today there's all these elected officials, legislatures, US congressmen. So we decided to move the important people over here. And anyway, Zach, I might actually need a little help up here. Yeah, I think so. Will you put that box on this table? So it might actually be helpful to talk a little bit about Camp Cowabunga before I turn it over to two keepers that are here. And before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and make their introductions and one other. So in the back of the room is Fawn Moser. Fawn is our Director of Operations here. I know that many of you know Fawn. Fawn was actually hired here by Gary Clark. So I'm not sure to ask this question, who knew Gary or who did not. So actually, let's do who knew Gary. So a lot of you did, and only a few hands are down that did not. Gary was an amazing person and the very first zoo director here at the zoo. This concept that you're in was actually inspired by him. If you did not know Gary, there's a nice picture of him down the way in Gary's tent. And it was always the vision here that this safari experience be completely surrounded by animals. Later, when this giraffe project is done out here, that vision, that dream will actually come true. And Fawn spent let's just say countless, let's just go with that, hours with Gary on the detail that's in here. I was actually here over the weekend, and I was standing looking this way and realized I've never really stood and looked this way. And I saw this poster that Gary always used to have, and actually went up and touched it to make sure it wasn't the actual poster, but it is. I mean, it's the detail of the interpretive design is just exquisite here. So also in the back of the room is Anastasia Morocco, who is going to introduce you to some of the animals here. Did you do an internship here, Anastasia? You did not. So, okay. But before you were at the St. Louis Zoo. Okay. And then also in the back is Aaron Day. And we swiped Aaron from Zoo Atlanta. So you'll get to hear from Aaron as well. But to give you a little flavor of what we're doing, as you might imagine, Gary Clark was very much a fan of Africa. We keep this on display in Gary's office down there. And Zach, if you want to kind of pass that around, that is a version of Gary's perfect world. So Gary was a believer in connecting people to animals, and his 140 trips to his 140 safaris to Africa, this map that's right behind Marie, each pin on that map shows the destination of one of Gary's safaris. But on safari, he would find things like this. This is ivory from a hippopotamus. You know, and he would use that as he would interact with kids. This is a rhinoceros. Whoa. I don't think that's supposed to make that sound when you step on it. But when we started to work on this project, we got connected with an interpretive designer out of Boulder, Colorado. His name is Seth Frankel. Seth had a very special appreciation for Gary even before he got here. And the very first meeting that Seth and Gary had, Seth presented this. Does anybody know what this is? Done. Actually, it's fake done. But man, it was good enough fake that Gary and I were kind of looking at this when Seth pulled it out of his satchel. And Dr. Teeter, if you want to open that hinge. And lo and behold, there's dung beetle inside there. Now there's a story with that dung beetle. See, there's a display at the Smithsonian of the largest, sure, go ahead, the largest mounted bull elephant in any museum. And at the foot of the elephant, there's this display of dung beetles. Only nobody ever sees the dung beetles because the elephant's so big. But they're those beautiful, exquisite little dung beetles. So we wondered if Seth stole one of those dung beetles. The answer was no. He worked with the sculptor at the Smithsonian who crafted them. And Gary opened his desk drawer, pulled out another one from the Smithsonian display. We just decided to not ask questions how Gary got that. So moving on with the dung beetle conversation is dung beetles are important, very important to the world because they eat, of course, dung. And so this is a small replica of the 3 large dung beetles that people can actually sit on the hot dung when it gets warmed up in the summer. Gary used to phrase that a little differently. So that was fake dung. This is real dung. If you see it, there's holes in it. That's holy. Thank you. So that's my quick story for Gary. Had a way of connecting people to Africa and wildlife, and Gary had a way for really being funny about what he did and said. But there was an entirely different side of Gary. Gary never stopped learning. And till about 2 weeks before he passed away, he was always giving me stuff saying, you need to read this. And sometimes it was just periodicals, like this one that I pulled out because suddenly what's in here is relevant to what we're building out there, and want to pass that along to our staff here. Sometimes it was books like this, because Gary saw the value of always knowing both sides of the story. This book is actually written by a proponent for animal rights groups that is opposed to humans having relationships with animals. And Gary and I both got a copy of this book relating to the ethics of animals in human care. And so I share this for no other reason to say that Gary was really a pioneer up until the day he passed. And even beyond the day he passed, his legacy still is here in this project. But that study that he did influenced us enough to know that as this zoo continues to define its future, our programs and our people have to operate this organization in a way that justifies the relationships that we have with these amazing animals. And to take that a step further, we know that if we aren't active in changing the world, the next 30 years is going to be a real hard time for the world to adjust to in terms of having available food and water and places for wildlife to live. So I'm actually thrilled that you're probably meeting two of our staff for the first time today that represent who we are and the future that we're going with. So I'm going to hand the microphone to Anastasia. Anastasia is going to tell you a little bit about our monkey friends over here. For those of you on the Zoom, I'm actually on the Zoom call. I'm going to unmute and use my camera so that hopefully well, we'll see where Anastasia goes. If you stand in front of this camera, you're good.
I'll stay here because there's not a lot of space.
All right.
You are a co-host.
Thank you.
Hi. So I'm Anastasia. I am one of our Leanna's forest keepers here. So that includes our orangutans and sun bear over across the way. And then this mixed species exhibit behind me. So in addition to the Patis monkeys, we also have Kirk's dik-dik, which is that small antelope you might see, and then our very noisy flock of guinea fowl. Is this better? Okay. I'm very excited to talk to you guys today, if for no other reason than to give my friends and family a break from my nonstop talking about these monkeys. So we are incredibly lucky to have Patis monkeys here at the Topeka Zoo. Not a lot of zoos across the country have them. They're only in a handful of places. And we're even more fortunate because we have 3 generations of monkeys here at the zoo. So we can really see the whole life cycle, a true family relationship, which is really incredible. So along with that family life and along with that generation of, they're really interested in you guys. They honestly have paid better attention to your guys' proceedings earlier in this meeting than I've ever had them pay attention to me. So maybe come back and teach me something. So there are definitely a lot of challenges that go with dealing with multi-generational groups. As you can imagine, the medical needs for them vary pretty dramatically. So we have had 2 babies born here at the zoo, the little ones that are making all the ruckus. And so they are just now starting to come into sexual maturity. They just recently got their first birth control implants, things like that. So that's kind of we're at that beginning stage of life for them, managing all of that. But also Winnie, who's our oldest monkey, she'll be 17 this year, is starting to sort of require geriatric care. Last year, we started to notice that she was slowing down, that she was more hesitant about climbing. And we suspected arthritis, but you can't make a diagnosis like that without vet intervention, specifically x-rays in this particular case. We were really fortunate though, because the zoo had just recently gotten a grant to get a squeeze, which is essentially a fancy word for a crate that we can use to get the vet closer to the animal, provide the sedative to start a procedure, because obviously these guys are not going to sit still for the vet to check on them. You cannot explain to them how to sit for an x-ray. And so we can use that technology to much more safely ask them to participate in their own healthcare. So we have worked a lot in this last year to train all of these animals to participate in that healthcare, to go in that squeeze. And we were able to get Winnie in there to do a vet procedure, to get those x-rays, to confirm her diagnosis. She now has anti-inflammatory medication, and it's night and day. She's way bolder. She's way better about climbing. And so it's really exciting that we are able to provide that level of care. As well as provide an experience to visitors that not a lot of zoo visitors get. There's some really big, incredible zoos that don't have these guys. So it's really, really special to be able to share them with you. I love them very much. They keep me on my toes for sure. But yeah, that is our Patas monkey family. You good, Brenda? Okay. Patas, P-A-T-A-S.
All right, so we're going to try something a little different. How are we doing time-wise?
About 12 minutes, but keep going.
So, Aaron, we've got about 12 minutes left. Do you want to go to painted dogs or to live?
Yeah, let's do dogs first.
Okay, so we're going to invite you to stand up and join us in front of the painted dog exhibit.
Okay. Let us reach out here.
Yeah. They're interested. Just young ones. Oh, thank you.
It's food. You get food.
So you're also going to have to talk loud because the speakers for this mic are on either side of this. So close to your mouth and loud. Yeah.
Give it close.
All right. Yes, me? Yes. All right. I'm one of the carnival workers here. And so we have in our carnival collection, we've got the lions behind me, we've got the painted dogs, we have Sumatran tigers, And then on the north range of the zoo, we've got the cougar, river otters, and black bears, along with our pronghorn, and then golden eagle and turkeys. So mostly carnivores and then a couple other ones. Let me talk to you for a few minutes about our no deadly lion behind me, and we will take care of that as well. But we do have our teenage dogs down on the end here. I'm not staying there because it's really nothing to look at. There's sitting out there somewhere, and I'm just going to go down. We've got three brothers. The painted dog and girls are very interesting. Actually, never right there before I came. But they're very socially bonded, very social animals, very pack oriented. So in the wild, they travel, work together, sit together, all these big packs basically. And basically it's kind of the alpha bear kind of whole pack. And so they decide where they're going to go, where they're going to hunt, what they're going to hunt, what they're going to do that day. Here, these dudes, you have three brothers, Riker, Helen, and Dakota, and they 6 this year. They're very challenging animals, as they are so there's very little that you can do as keepers to kind of fear in that pack social grouping. And so they decide it's usually one dominant animal and others. And so sometimes you might see that they're kind of not getting along very well. One of the boy that might not be dominant to try to decide that he's gonna kind of try to take over, and that can cause some friction, some aggression. So we do everything we can to kind of keep that down as much as we can. Today, I've already been over here to see them all, but I do have a carcass up there for today, and that's one of the things that we can do to kind of help to mitigate some of that, some aggression, and some of that kind of pack dynamics. We have seen over the years that we are feeding carcasses, which we try to do every week or every 2 weeks. We have seen that it seems to correlate that we see a little bit more aggression when we don't have those. And then if we kind of once we start with those again, we should kind of see that aggression go down. So I'm not saying it's definitely related, but we definitely feel like our 3 boys need to help have that social grouping and social feeding. You have any questions about the dogs?
Are they actual kids?
They are canids. They're not canid. Sorry, that's a procyon. It's not under the canid genus, but they are dogs. Yes.
How much does that lion weigh?
They weigh about 330 pounds.
How much?
330. Whoa. Yeah. All right, any more questions about the dogs? Our 2 females here. Sante is the one laying in the middle here, and Zuri. We also had a male for many years, Avis. Sandy Avis passed away about a year and a half ago. He was old, he was about, I think, 16, 17, something like that. And so we're obviously very sad to lose him. But the girls actually are sisters. They were born same winter, I believe at Fort Worth Zoo in Texas, and they are very popular. And honestly, a lot of people after Las Vegas for asked like, well, how are the girls doing? How are the girls doing? Honestly, I'm sure they missed him as much as a lion will miss another lion. But I feel like from what I saw, I think the girls would have been more upset if they had lost one of them, he says, versus Avis. They're definitely more biased to each other than to Avis. And obviously, you guys might see Zuri on the rock. Zuri doesn't look like a female anymore. And that actually kind of changed into Las Vegas. And it's something apparently I've never experienced before, but apparently it is seen not all that rarely, but even in the wild, where a primate is its male. And basically what we believe happened here is she is a dominant female. And so we believe that her body to make up for the fact that there was no male, provides start producing more testosterone, and that's what has caused the mane growth. So, actually, kind of related to that, an interesting fact for you guys is that lions in the setting, like in the zoo setting, they decided they want to neuter a lion for some reason, they don't want them to breed. You don't actually neuter them, they do it testing on them. And that's because if you neuter them, they lose it, sorry, testosterone level will drop enough to where they'll lose their mate. So that's kind of interesting fact.
How do you tell if a lion is sad?
I mean, it's hard to say. They don't really, you know, as far as we know, we see, they don't necessarily feel the same emotions that we do. There's anthropomorphism, it's kind of put human emotions on animals. So, you know, you might see as much as a lion can be sad, you might see kind of a less interested in food, less interested in moving or interacting. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the window. Do you have any questions for that?
so that Erin can focus on what she's doing and use both hands to do that. I'm just going to fill in with some background noise, but feel free to tune me out and watch her. So I mentioned something earlier, and that was the relationships that our staff have with the animals that live here. And it's just an amazing thing to witness. You know, these are older female African lions, but they receive top-notch care. Yeah.
This is not a tame, nice cat, right?
No, this is not a tame cat.
You cannot go in there and play with.
You can only pet them once, is what I said. They are very much African lions that have developed a relationship with their staff based off of a reward for essentially participating in their healthcare, in their training programs. And so over time, they learn to trust that relationship. And you can ask a wild animal to do something that they otherwise wouldn't do based on the trust that that wild animal has and the potential reward that that animal is going to get. Now, you might see Asante here get displaced if Zuri comes up. They clearly have a dominance, even though they are sisters. And they are strong and muscular. Their tongues are honestly designed to strip other animals of their fur. So they're extremely coarse. There's actually a replica of a lion tongue just on the wall to the left of the training door that opened up. But one of the reasons why we developed, designed, and installed this door is so that people can get a different view, because it's amazing the difference between the glass window and the wire mesh that you can hear through, smell through. It's just a completely different experience. And the stronger we can plant an experience in a person that comes here, the more likely we can get them to be compassionate and empathetic for wildlife around the world. So, you know, our hope is that as we continue to grow, we can grow our staff, and demonstrations at this window are a normal occurrence, so that not only can we provide those experiences to people with the animal, but we can also share our staff with them, because that personal experience that our staff has when it's relayed is much, much more powerful than sometimes what I can do.
What's in
So what are they eating right now?
So if you didn't hear,
So if you didn't hear, Aaron's answer was meat flavored baby food. It's truly a treat. For their normal diet, we feed them a horse meat blend. These animals in the wild typically hunt antelope, and antelope have much more similar meat composition to horse than cattle. It's much more lean, much more gentle on the digestive system. So their primary diet is horse meat, but they get treats like this. And if any of you participate in our holiday giving trees and you've seen meat baby food on those things, now you know why. It's treats for our big cats. Any other questions? So, you know what I've always heard since I've been here is that Zuri, the dominant one that grew the mane, is that, you know, our staff that work with her have joked that you could just go ahead and drop her off in Africa and she'd be just fine. You know, Asante assimilated a little bit better too, depending on humans for care, but man, Zuri is all lion.
1000% lion, 1000% behind.
So I have a feeling at this point we've run long. We're happy to stick around and answer questions for the people that are here. The one thing I was hoping to say to wrap up with, and I realize some people have already left, but to those of you that support this, we cannot thank you enough. It's the community that has built this zoo, and that gets down to the individual level, and we truly, truly are appreciative of all that you give. So let's give Aaron and Anastasia a hand.
Well, thank you, everybody. I bet that wasn't what you expected when we expected that we were going to have a Thursday club meeting. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Very much. Great to be up close. We are also very thankful because home and they invite us in every Thursday. That's immeasurable. So our next meeting is May 12th at K started, and the speaker will be Alice Beebe, and she's going to be talking about Top City Barista. And if you follow her on Facebook, she is great. So she always knows new things that are happening in Topeka, which is wonderful. So we don't have to stand and do the 4-way test. Let's just do it. Of the things this fair do, this is the truth. Is fair to all concerned. Will it kill with better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Will it be kind and fun? Thank you. Thank you. Stay for that. Check out the vegetables you're going through. We'll be at the back table.
Now, I tell you,